Hey everyone, welcome back to the Sensitivity Doctor. Today I have a really cool episode for you that's a little bit different, and it is exploring one of the most famous artists in the world who is most likely an HSP, who had many of his own mental health issues and struggles, and who we are having the fortunate experience of going through his artworks today. None other than Vincent van Gogh. I get to talk to the creative director, John Zaller, who has produced this experience along with many others over the last 25 years. And I really love this conversation because we go from unpacking what it means to be in flow, why creativity is so important for highly sensitives, what it means to stand in your vulnerability and do things that you care about. And I think you also get a cool little sneak peek of what it would be like to walk through this experience and be in the mind of such an amazing artist. I hope you enjoy the episode. How did you first get involved in the Van Gogh experience, of which I will say I've been to and love? My undergrad was in fine arts, and I've been to the actual Van Gogh museum. So I've always just been such a fan of it. So when I heard from your folks, I was super excited to chat with you.
So I have been creating exhibitions for about 25 years. It goes all the way back to creating an exhibition on the Titanic in 2000 and
Oh,
have really done that ever since. I mean, it's the same kind of elements as Van Gogh, the immersive experience. You find a good story, you you flesh it out almost like a 3D walkthrough novel, is how I always thought of it. The difference with Van Gogh the immersive experience and the immersive experiences that we saw coming out, in 21, is that they use a lot of projection, a lot more technology, and it follows the same kind of theme, which is that whenever I create an experience, I always want to push the envelope of storytelling, find a new way to tell a story. And obviously that's a lot of what we're looking for in these experiences is, give us a new way to experience something. But at the same time, with Van Gogh, the immersive experience, like with all experiences, but a lot with Van Gogh in the US, we have a great opportunity to tell the artist's story in a much more in-depth way, which is really satisfying, but also you as a producer and a creator, but also really satisfying for the guests who come through.
yeah, I have to say I really enjoyed. I don't know if all of them are the same. I went to the one in Raleigh. I enjoyed the entire thing. My favorite room though was there was this massive room at the end of the whole experience where I think it was you were kind of in the scene of all of these different paintings of his, and you saw them kind of move and evolve, and you got to sit and relax in it.
Yeah.
And that was what I really liked. Like, it wasn't like you're just walking around and looking. Like, you actually got to lounge like the people were lounging in the images. And I don't know, it just that was definitely my favorite part, like being part of it in a way.
Well, I mean, that is the immersive gallery, and it is the crown jewel of the show, hence the name, the immersive experience. And that really is the point of it, is to be bathed in Van Gogh's art. And it's really fascinating. Anybody you talk to, what's Van Gogh the immersive experience? One of the things that we always say is, have you ever dreamt of stepping into a painting? And anybody on the street you say this to, they say, yes, I've always wanted to do that. And so it's really impressive and exciting, the degree that people from all walks of life, people who've never set foot in an art museum before, people who've never studied art before, respond to this concept of Van Gogh the artist and also being bathed in his artwork. So that's about a 35-minute experience that's up, but it's on a loop, and it is set up so that you can spend as much time as you like in there. And we do find people really chilling out, enjoying the experience. And the experience does go through a bunch of different moods. So you're going up and down with these moods as you go through the experience. And that is really enriching and enlightening for people.
And the thing that, I really loved about getting to talk with you today is not even just that I enjoyed the actual experience myself, I had gone to it, but I'm very intrigued by Van Gogh as a sensitive because I don't know how much you know about high sensitivity, if you've ever looked into it. It's a lot of folks that listen to this podcast are highly sensitive people, hence the
I
name.
did read up on it. I read up on it a little bit before we met today.
Okay. And one of the questions, if you look through Dr. Lane Aaron's questionnaire, is does music and art move you deeply? And it kind of makes me, I giggle when I think about times where I've gone to like Disney movies with my kids and I'm crying, like at like just these epic scenes, or, you know, that led me to think about that folks who are highly sensitive are so moved by art usually. Actually, there was an article I saw recently where they didn't use the term highly sensitive person. They said something about people who get goosebumps when they hear really moving music are more empathetic. Their nervous systems absorb more from other people's emotions. And I'm thinking, why aren't they just saying HSP? Because that's what it is. So I'm curious for you, just as someone who's curating this amazing experience, what do you think would be especially appealing to highly sensitive people who maybe would walk into something like this? And why would it be even more, could have the potential to be even more amazing for them?
So I think a lot of it is the story of Van Gogh himself. I think there's an empathetic connection with the artist. He's someone who was clearly a genius, clearly misunderstood, really struggled with his emotional state, didn't have the tools that we have today to understand that. But instead of lashing out in most instances, except the famous razor incident, he focused his pain on the desire to create beauty. And all of those things combined, I think, create this empathetic connection to the artist as a person, and then make me appreciate his work so much more. So I think that's the first part of it, that his story has so much empathy built into it for us. And then as you go through the experience, you get to know the artist more. We presented it in these ways that have these powerful visual environments. So from the entrance, where we have the projection of Van Gogh's self-portraits onto a bust, this all kind of white gray projection-oriented bust, and there are appearing his self-portraits. He's kind of floating in the darkness there. This is who we're going to meet. This is how we're going to meet him, Vincent van Gogh, through projection mapping. And then going through the galleries, what's interesting is we obviously are presenting reproductions of Van Gogh's artworks, but we present them at their actual size, and people spend a lot of time in there studying his artworks as though they're in Amsterdam, looking at his paintings, just the reproductions of his artworks. And I think the variety of the environment also is appealing to folks who are more sensitive, highly sensitive people, because you have many different opportunities to learn about the artist, but you always have in the background this incredible score, this incredible music that is similar to the immersive experience, takes you through these moods, and then you hear a voice actor reading quotes from Van Gogh's letters to his brother Theo, as though Van Gogh is in the room talking to you while you're experiencing his work. Then, as we get further into the experience, in Winston-Salem, we actually created a sunflower field that you can walk through.
Oh, that's so cool.
It was a it's a very powerful part of the experience. And then the immersive gallery, of course, where you're bathed in his works. There's a kind of an experience funnel you go through here, where you learn objectively about the artist, you learn his story. Then you can step into his artworks. We built out his bedroom in 3D, for example. Then you're
Oh, I
bathed
loved
in
that
his
part.
works. It's a great moment. You're bathed in his works in the immersive gallery, And then when you put on the virtual reality headset, it's almost like you're seeing the world through his eyes. And that experience funnel where you essentially become the artist, I think is part of what makes it such a special experience, especially for those who are more sensitive to art and music and this type of emotional connection.
Now I'm wanting to go back. This was a couple of years ago when I was there. Um,
It's
but
just up the road from you.
I know.
Well,
Winston-Salem's
not
not too far.
maybe it is a 2 hour drive, but
Yeah, a little bit of a hike, but no, I'd love to bring my kids back actually. My daughter especially is really, really creative and loves she's far excelling in her ability artistically than I even had at her age. But something that I love that you were saying was about how he took his pain and was creating beauty out of it. And that's something that I encounter a lot with my therapy clients where they have, I don't know if you've heard of the trauma responses like fight, flight, freeze, and fawn, and how we can't necessarily control how our nervous system and our physiology is going to respond to trauma. It just is this kind of inborn reaction that just happens. And after experiencing trauma, usually if a trigger, comes in our way, we will re-engage in that same type of trauma response. So if fight was your response, fight will be your trauma response down the road. Something so interesting and meaningful that I've noticed is that for some of my clients who tend to really get into like a flight kind of response with their trauma and sometimes in that fight response, when they can find something like a project or a creative avenue or an outlet to purposely engage in their trauma response, it's like it takes what could be debilitating and turns it into potentially something so beautiful. And so when you're talking about Van Gogh, it kind of reminds me of that he was able to take his pain, like you're saying, and channel it. You mentioned the letters to Theo. This is something not a lot of people know much about, and I know he expressed intense emotions in these letters that, in my opinion, really kind of continues to point at the potential that Van Gogh himself was highly sensitive. Is there anything
yeah, I mean,
unique or interesting about these letters that you think would be interesting for folks listening to hear about?
well, the sheer volume of them, over 700 letters that he wrote, and
Well, that's impressive.
the incredible connection it created between the brothers. These letters. I mean, Theo really protected Vincent. Every painting that Vincent painted, Theo took and safeguarded. Uh, he, he only sold one painting in his lifetime, but somehow he managed to keep going because his brother would give him some money to carry on with his work once he really established himself or started on this path as an artist. Theo also died within 6 months of Vincent dying, which is clearly from heartbreak or some kind of loss like that. I mean, it was an incredible connection. And then when you get into the letters, you you see Van Gogh as you understand what a thoughtful and emotive person he was, what a deep thinker he was, and also how much he struggled. So and how much he was exploring this new way of creating art. He would talk about how he felt most comfortable painting out in the open, painting the natural world. He didn't want to paint stage scenes, still lives like other painters would paint. He talked about these new discoveries of color that he was making. Uh, he also talked about his own struggles. There's a great quote that we feature in the experience, which is right at the end of the immersive experience. And I don't have it completely memorized, but he basically said, there's a fire that burns inside of a house that's shuttered. And there's a lone housekeeper sitting by this fire. People see the smoke coming from the chimney, but they don't understand the warmth of the fire inside of the house. all he wishes is that someone would come and sit beside him at the fireplace. And I think that really helps sum up the kind of emotion Van Gogh was feeling, the isolation he was feeling, but also his ability to express it, which again helps us appreciate not only his abilities as an artist, but his abilities as a really deep thinker.
Do you feel like his, I know he had some health struggles, and you're speaking also of his mental health in a way and his sensitivity. Do you feel like he was misunderstood and not able to get the help he needed then? And how would you envision if he was an artist now, if he was around today with what we know today about mental health? Like, just in your imagination, how could you have seen it be different for him?
Well, without a doubt, he was misunderstood. He was, the at the time, I don't know exactly, like he was the village lunatic, right? He was the archetypal crazy artist. He was moody. Um, he was isolated. He he struggled with his own pain. Very wanted to engage in very deep conversations with people all the time when people were busy, going about their daily lives. I've thought about this quite a bit. I think about the poet Robert Lowell, who became aware of his own kind of chemical imbalance, which he was sort of diagnosed with at the time. And he said, "It's amazing that a little bit of sodium in my brain chemistry drives me to be this way." So at least he had a somewhat of a framework that he could put around his mood swings. With Van Gogh, he didn't have that awareness. He didn't have any of those tools. And what I've reflected on a lot is how much more incredible output would he have given us? How much more beauty would he have created for us had he been able to have some of these tools to live a longer life? And that's it's just kind of a bit of a melancholy for the artist himself, but also for us who could have experienced have so many more works of his to create. He did create over 800 paintings in the 10-year oil paintings in the 10 years that he was creating art, and over 1,200 sketches. I mean, he gave us works that are truly immortal in the Western canon. But it is kind of a sorrowful reflection on the fact that there were no tools to help him in his struggles, and he was engaging with him was a little bit taboo because he was so different from everybody else who was more focused on their job, their family, their daily habits, whereas he was exploring this entirely different world, which you see with a lot of artists today, many artists today, that if they do have any kind of struggles like this, they have outlets to express themselves and to be understood.
Absolutely. Just to get a time frame, and I'm like trying to think of how much of my art history I've forgotten now. What was the time frame of his life? When did he pass? And how?
So, 1853 to 1893. Um,
So he
so
was
he
what,
died.
40? No.
He died.
What?
Yeah, he was 37 when he died. Actually,
37. Okay.
yeah. Um, he he died of what many said was a self-inflicted gunshot wound in the stomach.
Wow.
This was right after he had a major psychotic break. Not right after. He had a major psychotic break, the famous ear cutting incident with Paul Gauguin, where Gauguin was critical of his sunflower paintings and his style in general. And he pulled a razor on Gauguin. Gauguin left the house where they were living in together and stayed somewhere else for the night. And Van Gogh went and he cut his ear. He didn't necessarily cut the whole ear off, but he mutilated a part of his ear. Um, he went that night to a brothel in town that he frequented, sometimes. And he had this small piece of his ear, and he gave it to his favorite woman in the brothel and said, "Here's a small piece of me for you." He's bleeding everywhere. He goes back to the house. The door frame, the front of the house is covered in blood.
Yeah,
So
gosh.
Gauguin comes back the next morning, and the police are there, ready to arrest him for murdering Van Gogh. And then Van Gogh appears in the doorway, and they realize that this was all self-inflicted. So this was the beginning of a really tumultuous, well, the culmination of a tumultuous period in his life. He went and committed himself to a asylum or a monastery where he was treated. And in this time period, these last 2 years of his life, he was able to create the works like Starry Night in this contained space where he was a little bit, where he was safer, he was being treated, he was to a certain degree being understood. His doctor released him, and within about 3 or 4 months, he was dead.
Oh my
So there's always
gosh.
been this question of how did he go through all of this, survive that psychotic break, create all these works, and then immediately upon his release, how much did the doctor not understand him that he could immediately be released and commit suicide? Recent recent research has recent historians and researchers have surmised that Van Gogh may have been shot by some kids in the village that he was playing sort of cowboys and Indians with, or cops and robbers with. They had an actual gun and shot him, and that Van Gogh, instead of getting them in trouble, said that he had shot himself. So that's undetermined if that really happened or not. But also him taking his life is now brought into question more too. Did he actually take his life, or was he shot in this unfortunate incident with, kind of rambunctious kids?
Wait, so how did he get shot and then say he got shot? Was this like he wrote a note or something?
No, he was shot in the stomach, and then he
Okay.
was taken into a hospital for a few days. Essentially, he had the sepsis. He, developed sepsis,
Yeah.
and died from the internal poisoning of his gut, uh, leaching into the rest of his body. So,
Wow.
very painful death as well.
Yeah. It's interesting because I'm not a historian of Van Gogh, but I'm just thinking as a mental health therapist and what I know of suicide and just the time frame that he was towards the end of his life was really just when I think like Freud was born. Like it was kind of around that time there was that like overlap where the whole field of mental health becoming what it is even was just in its birth. But like you said, people being treated in places like asylums or monasteries, and to what knowledge they did or didn't have about stabilizing. Like, how do we know someone's actually stable to leave? That's one thought that comes to my mind that I want to say something else about. But the second piece is if someone is suicidal and they actually want to kill themselves, usually it is not going to be typically through the stomach. If we think
Right. That would
about
be very unusual.
it would be very unusual because that's not a sure bet. It's extra painful. And usually, when someone has come to that really tragic final decision and they want to have it happen, they're going to do it in whatever the most productive way is, the quickest way would be. So, yeah, that seems odd that it would be in his
That
stomach.
that's a really, I mean, that's a really interesting take on it too, because yeah, you do think about
Yeah.
people who have attempted suicide and not been successful. It's not like the next day they're doing it again, right? There's a moment
Right.
where they make that decision. If it's not successful, they're not necessarily, they're going to get treatment, but they're also not necessarily, they're going to survive that. They're going to live on to say that was something I attempted a long time ago, or I attempted earlier in my life. But you're not watching them every single day for the rest of their lives necessarily.
Right.
So
Exactly.
that's a really interesting
Wow.
point.
What a mystery. I mean,
And you would want it to just be, if you make that decision, you're going to want it to be completed as opposed
right,
to only see what
exactly.
happens.
Right. Oh my gosh, what a horrific way to end, like to
Yeah.
end your life, and how painful.
Well,
And it
especially
makes
when he's coming out of the most productive time period
right.
of his artistic career. I mean, he's really kind of he made a true breakthrough. Like he revolutionized painting with paintings like Starry Night. I mean, completely changed painting. And the other thing that's amazing about him is that within 20 years of his death, I mean, he sold one painting in his lifetime. He was isolated. But within 20 years of his death, he was famous. His
Wow.
sister-in-law put his paintings on display, started doing exhibitions of his work. And in Germany, especially, he became famous with essentially overnight in the art world. And now today, when you think about, I mean, the Van Gogh Museum, which again was all because of his sister-in-law.
Oh, did she create that?
She essentially safeguarded his works because Theo died, and she had all these works. She's Theo's wife. She had all these works, and she became her mission to make people understand who Vincent van Gogh was, and to see his artworks. But by Theo safeguarding those artworks, and then her care of them, before her death, the Van Gogh Foundation was created, and that became the Van Gogh Museum in Amsterdam. So it's a direct connection to from that storage room that Theo had, where everything was carefully stored, to the Van Gogh Museum. So that's why his works that are in such great shape. When we look at them, they haven't deteriorated because they've always been cared for with this level of care. Because he was recognized very shortly after his death as such an important artist in the Western art world.
And his art was it not targeted during the time where in Germany a lot of art was being destroyed, or was it protected? Because you mentioned him becoming famous in Germany.
So at that time, that was right at the beginning of the 20th century.
Mm-hmm.
It was more that you see certain paintings from German Expressionism that are directly inspired
Mm-hmm.
by the works of Van Gogh. I'm not
Mm-hmm.
aware that any of his works were destroyed or
No, 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 not
targeted.
his. I never heard that they were. I was curious if his family's efforts to, keep everything so protected and safe was part of why it was never, and or you said he became famous there. So now I'm just curious and I'm going to have to
Yeah,
go
we have to
explore this a
do
little
some
bit.
research on it.
I will say I have been to the Van Gogh Museum in Amsterdam.
I've been there too. It's when we were growing up, we had a painting or a reproduction of a painting of the sunflowers in our kitchen, and it's such a great memory for me. I mean, also, I always thought there was one sunflower painting. Turns out there's 11. He painted a series of 11 sunflower paintings in two phases of his life. One of which focuses more smaller canvases that he painted first, that focus more on the end of life, these kind of dying sunflowers. And one, the bigger canvases that we're more familiar with, that where he used over 30 shades of yellow because he was trying to express joy, the joy that sunflowers brought him in his work. And to him, yellow was the purest expression of joy. So he used these yellow colors. But having that great memory from childhood and then seeing that painting in the Van Gogh Museum was incredible because the thickness of his brushstrokes and the the vibrancy of the colors immediately made it feel like that painting had movement to it. And that's one of the things that I think one of the reasons why Van Gogh's work lends itself so well to digital animation is that it already has all that movement implied in it.
Oh, right.
So then when you see it move, you see the wheat field with crows move and the crows flying across the wheat field. It makes sense because that's what he was painting. He was capturing that essence of movement in his work.
When I hear you talk about his work and how it, impacted you from such a young age, and sounds like it might have even been a catalyst for some of your creativity. You did a little bit of research into sensitivity. Would you consider yourself to be highly sensitive, or what are your thoughts on that?
I mean, I do like quiet time. I do enjoy meaningful work. Um, I do like it with the lights lower and I do enjoy deep relationships. So I would say I could be one of those people. The one thing that so far I've been lucky with is not experiencing too much burnout in in the kind of the stressful environments I've been in. But I think the work of creating experiences is about putting yourself in a in a visitor's shoes and saying, how are they going to feel when they walk around this corner? And being excited by the fact that, we're going to, okay, and then we're going to turn the corner and boom, this is going to happen. And being, standing there at the end, like, we just, we just completed a Titanic exhibition where we were able to, through the storytelling, really connect guests with the passengers and standing there with the satisfaction of
Oh,
just
wow.
watching people come out feeling so engaged, some with tears in their eyes. So, I think it's part of the work is being attuned to the sensitivities of others so that you can create work that's meaningful for them.
I love the way you described how your own sensitivity has probably rippled out and impacted thousands of people, because I really believe only someone who thinks and feels the way that you're describing could think about what other people's actual experiences would be like. Like, you need that level. It's also, I think, one of the things that I'm so grateful for you that you haven't experienced burnout. Well, I'm sure, not every day is the same, but because it can be very common where what we love to do pulls us into maybe a field or a career that doesn't match our sensitivity as much. I mean, I have clients I work with who are nurses or police officers, and they are highly sensitive, these particular individuals, and the compassion fatigue is so intense in some of those fields. And so it's just such an interesting phenomenon, because people who are sensitive really, really often, I feel this way. I feel better when I feel like my work aligns with like the true essence of who I feel I am. And that can be really hard to do, to find, first of all, and then beyond finding it, not feel burned out by it. So how do you not burn out? I feel like that would be a lot to have to create these massive experiences for other people.
One of the things that I've been fortunate to, I mean, and fortunate enough and dumb enough, I guess, to,
I like
or
your
ignorant
honesty.
enough, blind enough to to feel when I'm creating, when I'm working on something, is that it's the best thing that's ever been created. I mean, I do have this odd level when I'm in this creative mode of this incredible amount of confidence in the work that immediately is followed by the editor in me who says, okay, well, this has to go, this has to go, this has to go. So there's a way, because, I'll come up with this idea, oh, we're going to do this. And then it's a great idea, but it's never going to work practically. So I also have the ability to have this editor that can say, no, we have to cut that. And a lot of times that's also determined by, we want to create a $10 million experience. We have $2 million to do it. Right. So you're not going to get
Right.
the other $8 million of concepts in there. So I've just been, I think that when you start with something that, and when I'm doing something, I write it all down. This is the roadmap for what we're going to do. So even when we're creating the experience, I go back to to the roadmap that we've created, and I say, are we on the right path? So I had that level of belief in the initial concept enough to keep going. And then, I think part of it is I said I'm going to do it, so I have to complete it. There was one thing that I think, obviously totally off subject from Van Gogh, but
Love it. It's fine.
one of the first one of the first installations I ever did. I'm working with just very talented, very pragmatic production people who are like, this is never going to work. You're crazy to do it this way. Like, just a lot of doubt. And what I felt was I felt really, really vulnerable. And what I realized was that I had to embrace my vulnerability because I was there as the person who was vulnerable to create this experience. And that included going through the production process to get there where we could we could get through this together to create this experience. And it's at the end of every production, almost every production, not every production, the crew comes, and there's a great example of that but I laugh about with the folks I did it with, where one of the production guys came up and he was like, John, I had my doubts, but it really came together in the end. And that's kind of part of the process, but you have to be able to go through that process. You have to
Right.
know there's a process. And, we're, I'm just, when I think about all of these experiences and I think about a production or I think about the creation of a production, it's a 5-act play. You've got your introduction, you have your excitement and your anticipatory movement. You have your introduction of your characters and your conflict. You have your conflict. You have your resolution. You have your denouement, and that is really what the creative process of making these experiences is. And I think that's a lot of times that's the experience we go through in our lives. So if you can step back from the process and look at it more as, anything you're going through, there's going to be a resolution to this, and you believe that.
Right.
I think it really gives you that encouragement to go on.
I really love that. I mean, you outlined two things that are so common for creatives and creation. When you were saying, as I'm doing the thing and I know I'm creating, I get this confidence about it, about what it is you're executing or the excitement of doing it. And that's exactly how scientists define flow, is that when we're in a state of flow, we actually have a perceived confidence about what we're doing, and our self-esteem around what we're doing actually increases while we're doing it, which is really helpful and it keeps us going. And then you mentioned this other flip side to it. I love that you brought up like your inner critic and kind of like, okay, whoa, let's edit
Right.
this a
A little
little
bit too
bit. But
much. Right.
yeah, let's dial it back. But the the other part of it just being that when you believe in something enough, and if you're passionate enough about whatever that thing is, whether it be Van Gogh or Titanic or any of these other experiences that you've created, and whoever it be, if it's a nurse, a doctor, a therapist, a teacher, just whatever it is that you're doing, that you find something about what you're doing and have it matter enough to you that you're willing to stand up for it. And sometimes standing up for it means being vulnerable, like you were saying. So I absolutely want to go back into this experience
Yeah,
now. I also am
and
curious, what were you saying?
well, it's and the thing is that Van Gogh, the immersive experience, is one of those experiences that you feel that when you go through it. You feel it as a guest. You connect with the artist in such a way that you can experience that range of emotions that he experienced, and when he was making, and the letters, we do feature the letters. You have to read the letters to really, but that he knew he was doing something. He always had the doubt, but he knew he was doing something that was meaningful and that was going to make a difference when he was making his works. And that, that's, I definitely connect with that. It inspires me if I'm ever feeling down that, I think about poor old Vincent all those years ago, creating these incredible works.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, gosh, John, I have really enjoyed talking to you about this, and reigniting my excitement to go check it out again. I also am curious, the Titanic
Right?
experience, where is that?
Titanic: An Immersive Voyage. It's currently in Denver.
Okay.
It's soon to open in Montreal.
Oh, okay.
We also have a version of it in Cincinnati and New Orleans, and then it's in Cologne and Hamburg
Oh,
uh,
wow.
in Europe. So it's in a few different places, but that's really, having done a lot of Titanic experiences over the years. It's one that this, we went back to do another one, I said, okay, I've done 5 Titanic exhibits, different concepts over the years. This obviously has to be the best one. And I worked with an incredible team of very creative people, and it really is. It's the best. I mean, it's the best Titanic exhibit that's ever been made. So it's because of the way it connects you to. It's not just talking about facts and talking about stuff under glass. It's actually putting you in the story using all these all these technical video techniques that allow you to sit in a lifeboat with the projection mapping, look out over the
Wow.
open water and see Titanic going down, and on the top of the screen see her wireless messages going out.
Oh my gosh, that's so
So
crazy.
really, it just places you in this incredible moment where
Right.
I mean, what's going to happen, but you're on the edge of your seat hoping it doesn't. So very powerful, really satisfying to have created that with some
Yeah.
super talented people.
Well, let me ask you one last question for you. What is your favorite exhibit or experience you've gone to that you have not created, and why?
That I have not created.
Yes, the one that you have not created, but you were just a full patron and you just got to fully immerse yourself as a guest. And you can take your time thinking of
I
it
don't,
because my editor can take her time editing it.
I don't get to go to too many experiences. It's probably, yeah, if we can edit this.
Oh, yeah, no, that's fine. Take your time. I'm very
Um,
curious. Because one that comes to my mind is like a lot of people really love like the Holocaust Museum. And there's all these like experiences in like DC area and all these different kind of immersive museums that come to my mind. But I'm curious if there's one that stands out to you. And it doesn't have to be experiences like you create, but just something that moved you.
Honestly, for me, probably it was also a time in my life, but when I was living in New York, I lived close to all the art galleries in Chelsea, and there was one particular gallery I used to go to, um, that featured all these incredible painters, and it was going through that gallery, looking at those paintings, knowing some of the painters, and seeing that work right in front of me. I think another thing that always moves me is live theater, because when especially when you are up close. Typically you have those are the cheaper seats, so
Right.
you're right up close. Actually, no, in theater they're not. In theater they're the but in symphony they're usually cheaper seats because you're too close. But
Right.
so live theater and live symphony are probably the two things that move me the most, because you're seeing people doing the thing that they have to do right, or everybody's going to see them screw it up. And
Yeah, there's a
that's
pressure.
like seeing the human, like the kind of the excellence of the human ability to express themselves in those, and prepare and express themselves in those moments. I grew up in Cleveland, and I got a master's degree there, and I lived really close to Severance Hall. So I used to go on Thursday nights to see the Cleveland Orchestra, and those are some of my best memories of experiences, is that live music created by these incredible composers with these huge orchestras. And I think that's part of one of the reasons, one of the parallels of the work is creating something like an experience, immersive experience, is like creating a symphony, because you have all these moving parts who all play an important role, and in the end, create this incredible movement. So those are my most meaningful immersive experiences.
I love that. I can see how you've taken pieces and the essence of them and created something that you're gifting the world now. So, for anyone who has listened to us chat today in your episode and they want to know more about your work and the things that you create, and also where to go see this experience, where should they look?
So the best place to look for info on Van Gogh is vangoghexpo.com. We're open in a lot of different cities around the country. So Winston-Salem, about to open up in Tampa, recently opened in Knoxville, or just south of Knoxville. Several more cities to come. And you just pick your city and you click on the link. The best way to find me, I guess, is LinkedIn.
Oh, okay. Awesome. I'll look for you on there.
Being on LinkedIn. I've really enjoyed this. The critic in me later will say, "What were you talking about, John?" But I was definitely in the flow. I was in the flow. So
I loved it. No, I loved it.
You have a gift to bring it
Oh,
out.
well, thank you. Well, John, it was so nice meeting you, and I hope everyone enjoyed our chat and is able to go out and see this amazing experience in a city near you.
Thanks, Amelia. Really enjoyed it.
You're welcome.